part of the 10 acres that's been calculated, because it could be used for both users on either the west and the east side.
So you're talking about car parking on the west and the east?
Well,
I'm talking about
we
where you're going to park people that are driving up here.
We haven't really addressed parking right now. We've looked at it potentially along Inhofe, where if we were looking at truck staging and looking at kind of general facilities, like maybe, like a core infrastructure that could be used by all, but without really having the full plans of what the farm would need, it's kind of difficult. So we assumed in this that they would include the parking within their 2 acres in the southwest corner where they would have their own teaching facilities.
So the parking would be down near the freeway?
Yeah,
Yes.
Wow,
yeah.
that's a whole different kind of thing.
How staff looked at it was the teaching was essentially, going to be sporadic, and that there would be workers, but they would be infrequent, and so when we've been talking with the county, we've been trying to address and essentially not have to pay traffic impact fees, because if we have regular visitors, in large numbers, then that means we have to pay the associated impact fee for that. And what the county has assured us is, we don't really care if you're gonna have a couple events a year, that's not a normal operation. So the question would be, is it, just workers on occasion?
Seems to me that the kind of things they're talking about would be on weekends, and you'd be looking at 50 to 75 cars. And, that would be half the people coming. If they're 150 an acre, they've got a 1 acre training area. That's a lot of cars.
So
Trying to squeeze into that. And then, so, does that leave only 2 acres then for the donatable road?
As Paul talked, it made me think of a couple of other things, but on different topics. And I wasn't sure who I was going to ask this question to, but then it struck me maybe you would make sense. When I was at the Farmland Sustainability Conference, the statement was made that we here in California were going to need 100,000 more farmers, I think they said, by the year 2020. Maybe they said in the next 20 years. So we need 100,000 more farmers in the next 20 years. One of the reasons the Enterprise Committee liked the idea of the farm was the educational component, which was certainly the recycled water. I don't know how much focus we had on teaching farming, but I know we liked the idea of pitching our programs, the integrated pest management, the household hazardous waste, the pollution prevention, the fog prevention, and I don't know if that was in the terms of kiosks or what. Do you know anything about that? What's your plans for that kind of education, or how does that integration with us occur?
And this is, again, these are conversations that I've had with Carolyn, and what I had said, because it looked to me like we were going to need to run a road. There needed to be a road to get to the education center in the southwest corner for people. And my anticipation was to actually line that with kiosks coming down, so that there was a process of going all the way down with information coming in. It stressed exactly what you're talking about in terms of water conservation, in terms of non-point pollution reduction, in terms of what you're not flushing down the toilet, those kinds of issues. So we had anticipated that being a very good way for people as they're coming in or directly exposed to all of that. We hadn't talked about that was probably where we got to, and when we talked about doing classes out there, of course then it becomes applied learning. So it's directly applicable. This is the water that's being treated, this is what the water is here going on to food that you're eating. Be responsible, and because there's a direct correlation between what you do and what happens here.
And if the newspaper writes anything, or you put big bold banners up, don't flush, flushable wipes. I mean, I can't say that loud enough or often enough. It's just unbelievable that people that just don't believe it because they get marketed as flushable, don't flush, flushable wipes. Sorry.
I have a garden plot that's about 40 by 20, so 400 square feet, and it's probably about 100th of an acre, I guess, a little bit less. I put a lot of effort into working that and growing produce and squash and tomatoes and beans, and really enjoy it, but it's a lot of effort. So I'm probably not as efficient as a more organized effort, but fundamentally, to make this thing go, you have to have a huge amount of labor, and it's all, I understand, volunteer labor. Is it primarily students? How do you marshal the labor that's going to be needed to do all of this stuff in terms of cultivating and planting and weeding and harvesting and all of this on an ongoing basis? I mean, just at my little scale up, that's 1,000 people.
I farm, I have a half acre in Walnut Creek. I grow almost 80% of my own food, and I work 4 jobs. I know exactly how much time it takes to grow food and how
Is
labor.
it all of the student labor?
We are not going to be able to do this all with student labor. We have farmers who have volunteered to come in and do work for us to start off with. And again, I do not want to have this based on all donated material. I don't want to have this based only on volunteers, but we have to have a stream of income coming in before we can pay people. I would anticipate in the future that we will be paying workers to maintain that property. I do not anticipate this, but we will start off with volunteers. That's our starting point. And we have, if you would tell me that I could be planting a cover crop at the end of the month, I'll have 300 people out there. But that's, again, I'm not, that's not long-term, it's not sustainable. That's a short-term thing. And I have to make sure there are only so many per acre.
Any other comments? Okay, thanks, Beth.
Thank you.
So I'd like to make a couple of comments along the lines of what Dave was saying earlier. You know, I'm not a big social media guy, but we do get copies of stuff from Central Sand. It's always easy to beat people up when you don't speak to them directly. It's always easy to throw stones when you don't come to meetings or read all the information. I have from day one said I support this law. I have from day one tried to work out a deal to make this farm work in one fashion or another. I, since day one, have tried to work a deal and to the point where it sits now with 10 acres. I was the one that suggested we do it for free. I was the one that tried to get it off the ground. So the information that you are getting, and you are, the stone thrower, is inaccurate. The information, written in this Facebook about me is inaccurate. Somebody needs to get their facts straight about me. I don't do things behind the scenes. I have to say that I cut a meeting short once because we've been dealing with this, as it indicates in our papers, for 3 years. I've really only been aware of this for approximately a year. And to me, in a sense, it's just scare tactics. We can go to polls and get people reelected. According to this, I'm a sour grape. You know, things like that are just name-calling, intimidation factors that are being filmed today. I don't get intimidated by it. What I try to do is do what's right for the people of the district and recycled water. I've been the biggest advocate for recycled water since day one. Amy, you will appreciate this because I know you sit on this side of the podium a lot of times. We made out there, over the last couple of years, over $1 million by watching trucks dump dirt. That's a chunk of change. We're talking about carving that area to take a section for the farm, trying to work a deal that's sustainable to you. Since day one, that's going to be my theme of this conversation. Since day one, as Paul indicated, we've got inaccurate information. I'm not doing it unless I get 53 acres. Carolyn Finney says, Bethel and Black says, you know what, we could do it with 10 and 15 if we throw in some educational pieces. In here, and I quote, the press will be there.